Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland. Here I am outside the flat where Spike Milligan lived for quite a few years. Spike Milligan was born in India in 1918 to an English mother and an Irish father. So his father was in the British Army. And of course, until 1921, people from the whole of Ireland joining the British Army was completely uncontroversial, even for those of nationalist views. Indeed, until the 70s, it wasn't that controversial, even for someone who regarded himself as a nationalist. Anyway, so Spike Milligan grew up there and indeed in Burma. And then he was brought to England when he was about 12 years old. And he was bitterly disappointed by the chill, by the fog, by the monochrome nature of the British Isles. And he greatly missed India. So that was that. They lived in South London in the Catford area. He went to Brown Hill School, and he left school as a teenager without any qualifications, which is completely typical for the time. He worked in a factory for a bit. So he was a man who was a fireball of creativity. He was just explosively imaginative. Anyway, the Second World War came along, and he joined the Royal Artillery, and he was fighting in North Africa. I believe it was in India briefly. So he told many droll anecdotes about his time in the British Army, like in the beginning, training to fire artillery pieces, and for the lack of artillery pieces, at the crucial moment, the crew all had to shout "bang" in unison to replicate the gun actually going off. So. He later wrote about his experiences in memoirs such as Adolf Hitler, My Part in His Downfall, or what is it, Bernard Montgomery, His Part in My Victory, or indeed Benito Mussolini, his part in my downfall, and blah, blah, blah. So he was known as a wit and a raconteur and was entertaining the troops. Was slightly wounded in the war, was in southern Italy at the end of the Second World War. But he came back to London, and he's part of the central pool of artistes, of performers. So he'd met Harry Seckham, who was cut from a similar cloth, a chubby Welshman whom we met in the Royal Artillery. Soon they met with Peter Sellers, who was, well, from Hampshire but grew up more in London, who again was a very wry and creative guy, a fantastic impressionist, and his pièce de résistance was taking off army officers who in those days spoke in this advanced RP accent, because there was a much greater gulf between the social classes in the 1940s than there is today. So Spike Milligan was making his living as an actor, as a comedian, and was in quite a few films up until the 1980s in the film. Even if you watch The Life of Brian, 1979, he's got a walk-on part. He so happened to be on holiday in Tunisia when it was being filmed, and Monty Python found out about this quite by chance and invited him, so he has a cameo. He was meant to be on for a second day, but they couldn't track him down, so that was that. He's just in it for about a minute. And there's a film about a postman about 1962 in which he stars. Nothing that was really Hollywood. So that was Spike Milligan. So he married thrice, if memory serves, had some children with his wives, had 2 children with 2 different mistresses of his. But he was forever afflicted by the black dog, which is to say bipolar disorder. So his mind could be teeming, he could experience pressured speech, could just be extraordinarily exuberant, buoyant, and energetic, but other times absolutely down at the dumps, feeling so gloomy, and had to go to psychiatric hospital. Indeed, I know a nurse who met him when he was in psychiatric hospital. So he was hilarious, part of the Goon Show. From about 1950, 1960, the Goon Show was surely the most popular radio show in the United Kingdom. BBC had the only radio stations there were. And it really was zany, just off the wall, all these crazy voices, special effects. These guys could do so many voices of so many different characters in different accents. It was really quick fire and hysterical. It's difficult to even summarize it, often based on wartime experiences or the petty absurdities of British life. So those guys, there was another guy who's part of the Goon Show as well, but I don't remember his name actually. And sometimes they're recorded live. So goons, I can't remember how they came up with the name Goon for their show altogether, and there's some characters who really are goons, meant to be like mindless thugs. So they split up about 1960 and they went their separate ways, and Peter Sellers had more of a cinematic career. What else about Spike Milligan? So he was a British citizen because born in India to an English mother, but his father from what's now the Republic of Ireland. His father retired to Australia, and Spike Milligan visited him a few times there. But anyway, then they changed the nationality law. The Commonwealth Immigration Act or something like that, 1962. So he was an Irish citizen by virtue of his father being born in Ireland. And he remained an Irish citizen until the day he died. Indeed, his coffin was draped in an Irish tricolour. His name was actually Terence, but he loathed his Christian name, so he decided to be known as Spike. I'm not sure how he came up with that one. And that's why it says honorary CBE, Commander of the British Empire for his services to comedy. And then he got this Lifetime Achievement Award at a ceremony in 1994. And a message was read out from the Prince of Wales, as in Prince Charles, who was an avid admirer of the Goon Show. And before the Prince of Wales' message got to the end, Spike Milligan notoriously said that that Prince Charles is a little grovelling bastard. Yes, he did say it ungrammatically. Come on, adjectives must be in a certain order. A grovelling little bastard. Please, if you're going to insult the royal family, let's do it correctly. And so he couldn't be a substantive CBE, he could be an honorary CBE because he's a citizen of the Republic of Ireland, not of the United Kingdom. Anyway, so he died in 2002, and on his headstone, he's buried somewhere near the southern coast. It says in Irish, "I told you I was ill." He insisted on getting the last laugh. So his comedy confrère, Harry Seckham, had predeceased him by a year. And Seckham was blessed with an extraordinary mellifluous voice, was a crooner. And that's how, when things had been going badly on stage, Seckham could always save the day by singing. But at the other guy's funeral, at Harry Seckham's funeral, Milligan, he quipped that, "Thank God I've outlived him, otherwise he would have sung at my funeral." So that's that, Spike Milligan, an absolutely fantastic wit, sorely missed. Just by Hyde Park is where he lived.